We are, it's like a battle royale scene. The bus is coming. We're going to get shipped off to an island. Does anyone know offhand how what time this session goes to? I know we're starting a little bit late. I just want to confirm.
It goes until 12:15.
12:15. Okay, so I got one hour exactly. We are a small group here, so I can spend a lot of time answering your specific questions. I had way too many slides prepared and way too many tabs open. Those are just preparatory. But I would love for you all to get the most out of this. I've got a lot of, get into it, a lot of engaging networks experience, a lot of tech experience in general. So if we want to go off the rails and make this more about the people in the room, 100% down for that. But you got to talk to me if you're interested in doing that. So make sure you're in the right place. We're gonna, the plan is to talk about templates, analytics, Google Optimize, and really how to help give your organization a boost, whether that's through the system you currently have, or maybe you want to revamp or are thinking about moving to engaging networks. This is where all those decisions start to come into play. Quick introductions, and I'm actually going to go around the room and we'll do introductions in a second because, you know, there's 5 of us. My name is Bryan Casler. I'm the Director of Digital Strategy at Foresight Studios. We're based in Washington, D.C. If you're familiar with D.C., we're in the Columbia Heights region. I got my start actually working with Iraq Veterans Against the War. I was a member organizing in upstate New York. Realized a lot of veterans do not have proficiency with technology, kind of worked my way up organizing locally, regionally, and then managed their whole digital program at a national level. During that time, I actually ended up moving us from about 11 disparate systems to Salsa, which was Democracy in Action. And that was a big custom migration, many faceted parts, and was years before a lot of these tools were very robust. But I really have it in my bones that I work with CRMs, I work with data. I'm all about like getting it done at the end of the day. Like what I realize is most executive directors, most people organizing in the field, really don't care how it's done. They just want it to be done and not be a headache and be like technical debt they've created for themselves where they know 6-9 months from now, they've shot themselves in a foot because they've gone down a technology path that they can't get away from. I got my start with kind of doing custom development for an IBM 3270 emulator, which if you don't know, because who would, those were old terminal computers where you like walked up and they were like green screens. And I started creating automated scripts for like ripping high volumes of data off there and putting it into Excel for one of the executives I worked with. Then I kind of graduated to like VB scripts and spreadsheet macros, and then started doing, ran my own small business, doing custom web development. And then my really first foray into a nonprofit CRM was with Salsa. They're still around. They're still a client. I still volunteer with them. So they're one of the oldest Salsa clients I know of since 2009. I also ended up working at Salsa, so they kind of poached my full-time job away, and that became a volunteer position that I jump in from time to time to help with. But I was at Salsa for a few years, and I kind of was like the always looking over my shoulder at engaging networks because I loved Salsa, but once the kind of activists, investors took over, capital investment that they had, took over, the culture of Salsa changed, and I was kind of looking more for that like non-profity, feel-good type company. And Engaging Networks was always our biggest competitor, and also, if you don't know, Graham owns the whole company. They've not taken outside investment, so it's his company to run. You don't have to worry about profit motive that can really change a lot of things very quickly. Anyways, I ended up going to an agency, Foresight Studios, and I work on all of our web projects. We do websites, microsites, custom development, analytics. Pretty much if you want to have it done, we do everything except run the campaign for you. We're not a marketing company where we're going to be loading your emails and doing all that. We'll help you with the template. We'll help you conceptualize it. We'll get you migrated or maybe build that first template and then train you how to do it yourself. But we like to enable and build capacity with organizations. And a lot of our clients are either through other agencies or retainer relationships that we have with them. But I personally work with all of our Foresight, or all of our Engaging Networks clients. So if you do work with us on Engaging Networks, you will work with me. And I will help facilitate either working with a designer or a developer, whatever process needs to happen. Real quick, let's do introductions. I'll start at the back of the room. We'll work our way up and then go back to the other side here. Hi.
Hi, I'm Christine. I work at Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, and we're located in Chicago. I'm the digital marketing coordinator there. I do like video and social for them.
Cool. I'll add one more thing. Give me a little blurb about what had you interested in coming in here, or why you didn't go to the other one. Why you're here or why you're not there. No judgment.
This one honestly just sounded more interesting to me.
I'll take that. That's a win.
I'm into Google optimizing and all that. So.
Awesome.
If you would just repeat things that people say, because they're not mic'd in your room.
Well, we're doing introductions. I don't know if people
Gotcha.
care for the recording about introductions.
Can we close the door, by the way?
No, keep it open.
Okay.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you do.
We'll just come for it.
Oh, I'm Sean. I work at PETA. I'm a senior web designer. And I think this is more design related.
It is design and development. Cool.
I'm Brittany Rackham. I also work at PETA. I'm the online fundraising manager. So I work with donation pages and donation emails. And I came in here because I am the person at PETA that works with our strategy company on Google Optimize, and we use Optimizely. So I'm interested to see if I can get some good insights from you.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
My name is Jacob Miller. I'm with Zuri Group. I basically do technical consulting there. And yeah, I came here because I don't know what Google Optimize is. Better learn.
Great, welcome.
Samantha from Denver, Colorado, and I'm with the organization Water for People. We are just starting the process of transitioning from a different platform, different CRM, onto Engaging Networks, and Ben told me this was a good fit for starting out and learning more.
Awesome.
I'm Claire. I'm the digital fundraising coordinator with Ocean Conservancy. My colleagues in the other session were mains. We're doing double duty, but I think machine learning is a little too in the weeds for me at this time. So I'm excited for this pages session.
Great. In full disclosure, we're going to be looking at actually a lot of work we did for Ocean Conservancy. This is before, well, some of it was before Claire was there, and even Romaine. Ocean Conservancy is one of our oldest clients, so we've worked with them over many years. But we've also got a bunch of other Engaging Networks clients. We'll kind of look at examples. Please feel free to jump up at any time. I will be happy to take questions, and if I can work it in, I'll work it in. If not, I might table it for the end, and then we'll bring it back up, and then we can also talk afterwards in the break if we want to. One fun fact, what I do outside of working and thinking about honeypot fields and Engaging Networks is I am currently on one too many campaigns playing Dungeons & Dragons. So this was my session over the weekend. We finally finished our first campaign after several months. But it's a lot of fun because it's creative thinking, and you'd be surprised how much flexing that creative muscle actually comes back into play when you're thinking about complex systems and how to actually end up with really elegant solutions to what seem to be very complex problems. Just some examples of the templates we built, and what's really cool is I have screenshots from really early prototyping days. So you could actually see, like, if you worked with us and you wanted to like concept a project, what that might look like. I'm even showing you some of our internal stuff that we didn't share with the client at the time, like, you know, when we're thinking through what our decisions are going to be. But International Campaign for Tibet is another client who actually came to us with the design. They had an in-house designer. And the first thing they had us do was just audit it to say, do you think, like, they had no experience with Engaging Networks. So they said, do you think this is going to work with Engaging Networks? And so we helped make some modifications to it that would more holistically match up to the back-end page builder with Engaging Networks. So you're kind of not swimming upstream, you're swimming with the stream with the tools that Engaging Networks have built out for you. And so those are done, and they're rolling out whenever the client is ready. I think they're timing it with some other programs they're doing. Just a little bit more about Foresight before we get into the back. We do tons of really cool custom development. This was for California Strong Start. This was an interactive map that had thousands of census tracts, counties, assembly, and Senate districts where you could dive in and see information about the effectively what is a scoring model used to determine how successful a child born into a certain cohort is going to be. So kind of like, kind of wonky if you're outside of it, but for the people who care about this stuff, this was a big project, and we were happy to work with the University of Southern California and actually 3 other partner organizations on it. So I just kind of wanted to give kind of the breadth of what we do, because engaging networks templates don't sound like a lot, but really the devil is in the details, and we do tons and tons of custom development. So the pitch for this session was, do you have template anxiety? Do you have page envy? We'll definitely talk about Google Optimize, and we can talk about some of the experiences I've had in terms of like what works or what testing methods have worked. It is not a Google Optimize heavy project. We've only had 2 clients use it, and Ocean Conservancy is the only one that the actual client has taken ownership over actually trying to run different A/B tests. But we can talk about some of the results and some of the setup that we did with them. We'll also help with your migration. We're doing that for another client. Not really the thing that gets me up in the morning is like, woo, I'm going to do data matching. But if it's part of a bigger project, we'd be happy to do it. Really, the nice thing about working for a small business is we kind of can focus on the type of work we want to do, and we want to do cool stuff. We want to do stuff that you might not think is possible, stuff that you haven't fully formed a concept in your head, or you do have that concept and you just need someone to make it a reality. Our work with engaging networks actually started with the legacy page builder, where we built something for OC called the Ocean Constitution and Oath of Our Ocean, which was really bespoke, design-driven page layouts. They were not meant to be replicated. They were one-off, very high-touch campaigns. That kind of got the attention of people at Engaging Networks, and at that point, Engaging Networks did not offer any templates out of the box. They just spit out raw HTML, and it was for you to figure out what to do or to hire someone to do something. So I made the pitch a couple years ago, why don't we build some custom templates that you could offer all your clients for free? And now if you're a new Engaging Networks client, the templates that you get are the ones that we built. And they're kind of version 1 of an internal framework that we've continued to design and develop that we build all of our client templates off. We really, when we think about templates, we think about workhorses for the most part, unless you're creating that really bespoke experience. But I think Claire could probably speak to this, and I can just personally attest to having worked with a bunch of other organizations with different constituent needs. Our templates are really, really well tested. Like, we don't have people come to us anymore about like, hey, this broke, or this looks funny, or why isn't this working? For the most part, that was all squashed all the way back with version 1 when we did them for Engaging Networks. We spent as much time QAing as we did developing. So super, super robust template, super, super robust framework. These are workhorses. Yes, they can look good, but if they're breaking, if they're not dependable, then what good are they? So we did that, and then we've kind of just been building new cool things as client needs have come up. Things like adding PayPal, give by check, upsell light boxes. So those are really popular right now, and we could go down a whole presentation about upsell light boxes, even have a really cool proof of concept I have pulled up. Another one's homepage light boxes with the full forms embedded right in the light box. No reason you can't do that now. And I have an example of Ocean Conservancy on their development account, and I want to launch it on their website. But completely seamless experience. The end user doesn't know that it's an iframed form. Yeah?
Those light boxes, do we have to use your page templates to access those? Or?
Nope, we could implement that. There's kind of a couple things that need to happen. You just need to like have a minimalist Chrome, kind of the UI around the form. And then we have to do usually like a cross-domain responsive iframe script on the parent and child page. So child page being the template, parent being the website. And then that way it loads seamlessly and is also responsive to devices. So we can implement that on top of your existing solution. We can also implement it for other forms as long as we can put JavaScript into the page that's being brought into the template. There's other ways to do that. You could do other API calls. That's a whole nother conversation. But what's really neat is we added a special code to our template where it's just a single class that says embedded. When it's embedded, it strips all of that stuff. So that page can exist on its own as a regular donate page. It can also then be embedded seamlessly as an iframe page, and it's the same page. So nice options there. And we'll do other things like pass URL arguments from the parent page down into the iframe page. So if somebody comes from an ad to the home page and then they get the white box, that those tracking parameters that came in from the ad can then be passed down and associated with the donation even further. Also anything in between. So again, kind of if you have an idea. For Ocean Conservancy, we actually did development for including processing fee. They're not using it right now, but that's something we could add to your Engaging Networks forms. Did anyone know Engaging Networks has one-click donate? Yeah, kind of like it's not on people's radar. Kind of the stars have to align for it to work. You have to have the right payment processor. They've had to have made a donation. With that payment processor, you have to configure an email. You have to configure a separate donate page. But if all of that aligns and somebody clicked, you also can't test it. So there's no way to like test it. But if all of that aligns, when somebody clicks that link, all it'll say is we'll customize the page. We'll like, hey, welcome back, Brian. Make a donation of $50 on Visa ending in 5555. And you can say no, and it pops out the field. Or if you just hit yes, it'll just automatically make it. We could also short circuit that whole process and have them never see anything and just have it auto submit. That's a little bit more dangerous. But the point is they've got cool one-click donations. Most people aren't taking advantage of it. Also requires heavy kind of understanding of the system and what needs to go in play to make it happen. And it's a different templating and configuration than the kind of main donate form. So it's its own whole beast. We also have something we created for Polaris, which is Polaris Project, which is helping individuals that are caught in sex trafficking, the illicit massage business. And they wanted, I'll back up. We got a call from Engaging Networks. We're kind of the agency they go to when they're like, hey, I got a client that wants to do this, and they're not going to sign with us unless we can figure out a way to do it. So they're like, can you figure this out? They wanted to have 4 different advocacy actions with letter to target, and then 4 more advocacy actions with tweet to target at 4 different geographic regions. And so if you know about Engaging Networks, that's actually 8 actions. So you'd have to go like page to page to page to page. We simplified it down into a seamless experience where somebody fills out their info, and then we're basically populating the content from all of those actions into a single page. So they can take action either automatically through a checkbox that will auto-submit everything, or if they don't have the checkbox, they could go in and customize the letters to, I mean, sometimes it's 20, 30 different representatives they'll be targeting. So we can actually combine actions. So if you wanted to have like donation with a click to call on it, or tweet and click to call, and you wanted to just like merge multiple actions together, we have the capabilities to do that. That is a very bespoke thing. That's not something you're going to manage, and it's case by case. But I'll show you it. It's super cool as a demo. We also do a lot of advanced validation. I love a service called Never Bounce, which checks emails against 30% or 30 different validators for it being a legitimate email address. And then we're actually working with Ocean Conservancy to do some more advanced honeypotting for them. They're unfortunately suffering from scam bots submitting real people's information to see if a credit card is valid. So it'll be like a $1, $2, $3 gift, because then they're going to go, use the card somewhere else. And we'll do A/B testing, custom analytics, Google Data Studio, everything in between. Usually what motivates people to do template overhauls is definitely number one is if they start seeing a drop in conversion. So if you migrate systems, if during end of year, it could be everything from the inconsistencies about displays across browsers, across devices, especially older browsers. Also really hard if they're hard for admins to update. I mean, I personally don't want you coming to us to be like, hey, can you update this title? Like, hopefully we've built something on the back end that like you're comfortable, we've trained you, we've documented it, maybe trained you again if you've forgotten. But like, we want to enable you to do that day-to-day stuff and remove us as the middleman for like the things you should be able to manage yourself. Because Engaging Networks is a very nice system when it's set up for each client's use case. Maybe your templates have no documentation. Does anyone's template have documentation? No? Anything about how the template is supposed to be managed, about every payment processor has different field requirements?
Yeah, we have hidden code that shows on the template so we know like what you have to do to make the changes.
Cool. We've got, just to show an example, so this is a Google Doc for Ocean Conservancy that literally is plain English, step-by-step, how everything's built. Whether you're somebody who's building the page, maybe in the future they hire a developer who wants to manage it, all of it's here and accessible. So I think that's important though, because they are your templates. You shouldn't feel like locked in, like it's like a black box that nobody can access except for the people who built it for you. Cross-browser consistency, that's a big one. Also, maybe your templates have few layout options. You want to try A/B testing. And then slow, sluggish load times. We really optimize for low connectivity and older devices. So we spend a lot of time optimizing how the template renders. And our template is basically it's as quick as we can make it. I've been submitting feedback to Engaging Networks, and they've implemented some of it, and some of it's still pending for future updates. But we literally can't make your template load any quicker than we've done through the way we've built our implementation. And that's really important. Google, Yahoo, and Amazon had released studies a few years ago that usually about a 200 millisecond delay in page load time corresponded to measurable drop in conversions. And 200 milliseconds is 0.2 of a second. It is almost imperceptible. You wouldn't think that would have an impact. The really interesting thing is that holds for mobile devices. So people don't care if they're on desktop or mobile. They expect it to load just as quickly on mobile. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're 3 seconds on desktop, but you're 10 seconds on mobile. Too bad. You're being punished for that. So a very quick way to help boost conversions, have higher likelihood that somebody's going to fill out that donation or advocacy form is just to speed up your templates. There's literally no downside to it. Our approach is we usually have either, depending on the organization side, we'll do individual or team ideation. So we'll get together, brainstorm, lots of writing on paper, passing ideas back and forth. We like to maneuver within the kind of confines of what's available, whether that's branding limitations, whether that's technology limitations. Always pet Dax, that's our office dog. And she's my dog, but she's the office dog when she's there. Fake it until you make it. That's really about lo-fi to hi-fi. So like getting something that you can visually see in front of you as quickly as possible. Because it really wouldn't be a great situation if we designed, developed, coded, QA'd, and then showed you something and you didn't like it. So we want to start as soon as possible with ideas, transform those into rough mockups, then into high fidelity mockups that look like screenshots of a final product, and then start to move those into development. And then that's part of the presenting and gathering feedback. So this is actually we'll look at OC's donate form, but this is the very first concept that we put together internally. Just sitting with, there were pages of these, sitting with one of our designer, kind of outlining all the elements that might go into the page. And my horrible handwriting there. Here's more designs. I think this was our designer, his notes about some of the layout options. Then we started moving into composite mockups. So that's right, this looks like a screenshot. Then been playing around with different ideas. We had this idea of like big number callouts with descriptions underneath. More variants on kind of that same concept, very visually driven. Here's other layout options, kind of exploring, playing with different ideas. And a lot of these look good in screenshots. The issue is like I said, we're building workhorses, so they can't just look good on desktop at one specific resolution. We actually not only have to think about all the different combinations on the front end when a visitor is coming to the website, we also then have to think about what's that editing experience on the back end. If you tell me you don't care about the back end editing experience, great. We can literally build anything you want. If you just say, Bryan, Foresight's going to manage and edit this, okay, well then the sky's the limit. If you say we want interns who have never taken a coding class in their life to be able to edit this, and I also don't want to have to handhold them or have them submit a support ticket, well then we have to think about what are the actual realities of working within the confines of the Engaging Networks page builder. So you're not like this salmon trying to swim upstream there. Different states. So here was simulating what an air state is, and we ended up, you'll actually start to see like when I pull up the real pages, like a lot of this has come through to the final designs. This was one that actually made it into development, and then in development we were like, this is cool in a mock-up. These big circular buttons are cool in a mock-up. They do not translate to a good user experience. So visually, nice. We got them working as expected from the code level, from the QA level, but we were just like, it's kind of being different for the sake of being different, and it really wasn't bringing a lot to the table. So we ended up, this was the approved design to go forward. So the very first version we did that, and then we ended up replacing them with more traditional buttons. Here's an example of the thermometer, so stylizing a thermometer. We had this concept of letting users be selfish. Most people do not read whole articles. Most people are not reading your whole donate page. That's okay. Don't fight it. Embrace it. So we had this concept of kind of this learn more, click to expand situation, which has been tested, and a lot of the people who use our templates like that concept. We've used it on other projects. You probably see it on news websites where you scroll, there's kind of like 2 paragraphs, and it's like, click here to learn more. The reason news websites do that is they make most of their money on advertising. So if you're not going to read it, they want to get you either A, back to ads, which are below the page, or B, get you to the next page with more ads. So that, embracing that idea of selfishness, embracing that idea that people don't read verbatim, they scan kind of like the first sentence, bold, different areas. So the technical underpinnings for this project were we were building it on Engaging Networks. The editing experience, the back-end experience must match the front-end expectations. So you don't want to have to make a large mental leap of like, I'm editing this, but then it kind of changes. Like we want the back-end to look as close to the final rendered page as possible. Engaging Networks lets you put classes, which are just little, basically tags, text tags on different parts of the page. And so this was our method by allowing variability. So different things, like if you wanted red for this page or blue for this page for like a banner background, you would just change the tag to say red or the tag to say blue. And then if maybe the blue changed in the future because of a branding change, we could just update one place what the color blue identifies as, and it would update across the whole thing. So it was a way to allow that variability, but also allow for future changes in branding or design choices. Fast by default. This is my own stickler, or my own thing I get stuck on, because no client has ever come to us because they wanted really fast pages. I care about fast pages. I care about it because it actually matters. People that don't pay attention to it don't know how much it matters. And so that's my thing that I always push, like super fast pages. One of the really cool things we did for end of year, and you're welcome to take this idea or we could implement it for you, is there is a new thing that some browsers support. Let me rephrase that. Most browsers support it. If you don't support it, then nothing breaks. So it's only an additive. Either your browser has it or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, nothing happens. And that's called prefetching. And what we did for OC and International Fund for Animal Welfare is when you went to their website during end of year, there was a high probability, more so than the rest of the year, that you're going to click to that donate page through an article, through the donate button at the top. So what we did was once the page is done loading, we set up a prefetch to go and grab every single file on the donate page. Every CSS, JS, imagery, all of it. So what that means is when somebody clicked from the website to the donate page, it loaded instantly, as if they had already been to it, because all the files were stored in the browser at that point. So that's cool. That's called prefetching. That can make it super fast if they come to one of your action or donate pages through your website. And that just needs to be implemented on your website in kind of a case-by-case basis. We also had to migrate from the old legacy pages to the new Engaging Networks pages. Did PETA have to do that? The old, yeah. So that was a big deal. It was the same amount of work as going from a completely external CRM to a new CRM. So we had a bunch of spreadsheets and mapping, and here's another one we're working with, large spreadsheets like this where we're auditing all the fields and planning everything. But we'll shoulder that burden with you. But like I said, that's not the thing that gets us up out of bed in the morning. We also, we're an agency. We have I wouldn't say a cheap rate. Like we charge DC prices for our work. And maybe some things you don't want to have us pay for. So we had group page building sessions with Claire. I think that was like early on when you were starting at OC. So like part of our training was actually like, let's all get on a video conference and for a few hours, like let's build out pages together. So like that was part of the training. It was also a way to shift some of the cost away from the migration to staff as part of the training session. So we can also kind of think of it like that way. How can we get the most out of every dollar we're spending on the project together? Then we did soft rollout. Basically, we transitioned, we tested, made sure nothing broke when you get in front of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And then we set up all the redirects. Nothing unfamiliar if anybody has done a migration. Just a couple stats and observations. We saw that the new forms over the old ones had a much higher one-time monthly and overall conversion rates. So just across the board. So it was a win-win-win in all different scenarios. Mobile conversion rates increased the most from all the different browsers we looked at. And we also reduced the average time on page from 2 minutes and 31 seconds to 1 minute 30. So just think about yourself. Imagine next time you check out from Amazon, you get to that final step, and now just wait a minute. That's how much time we took off. Like that's a lot of time. One of the actual observations that I don't have data to back up, but seems to be holding true, and other people are anecdotally expressing similar observations, is that there was definitely this big push to multi-step forms a while ago because they were cool. They were definitely like worked for mobile. They solved a lot of problems. The issue with multi-step is it does not allow number one, it doesn't allow an individual to quickly scan the page for everything that they need, but also more and more desktop browsers and mobile browsers are doing form fill. And so if you have multi-step, you're at minimum chunking up that form fill into as many steps as you have, where if you have a single step action, then it's usually contact info, payment info. So it's click from a dropdown, donate. So my feeling is that actually having a single step form is taking advantage of more browsers supporting form fill and more individuals having their information stored in form fill. So if you have a multi-step, it would be interesting if you experimented with single step, see if you had any improvements. So we did training, and then we ended up doing ongoing enhancements and optimizations. One of the big things was testing. Sure, there may be like industry best practices, or it worked for so-and-so organization, but if you're raising any sufficient amount of dollars, like do your own testing, find out what works for you. So there were kind of a few things we tested on the donate form, just monthly versus one-time giving. monthly went out handedly, not only pretty much in all important metrics it won. So all the donate forms default to monthly now. You'll also see that we make it very painfully apparent to the donor that they're donating monthly. We're not trying to like, hey, hey, did you know you were donating monthly? We snuck it in. Like, no, like you really want that explicit confirmation that like, yes, I intended to donate monthly. That's also going to reduce the overall burden for the organization in terms of the number of support requests they might get. But another big one was we had a 1-column and a 2-column layout. 1 column was a little blurb of text, truncated with the learn more, form fields, submit. 2-column was story. Maybe it's still truncated, but kind of story form. So like, is this a transactional form where you don't need to really pitch the organization, you don't need to pitch the mission? Or is it more of you need to make that, you need to tell your story, you need to build an emotional connection, advocacy versus fundraising. Sometimes the lines are blurred. But we actually ended up testing 1-column versus 2-column for both advocacy and fundraising, and found that 2-column for advocacy, more conversions, 1-column for fundraising, more conversions. So they've got these options, but right now, that's what they're using. I would say probably a year from now, I would maybe run the test again, see if something's changed. The other thing is that with any new forms, you also have kind of this novelty function that can't be dismissed. Like if you roll out something and it's not horrible, like you will just see a boost normally because it's like, oh, it's new, it's fun, it's exciting. So like you have to let those tests run and then rerun them again at a later date to make sure they're actually holding true. This demo isn't going to work because it's not up anymore, but one of the things is that Engaging Networks has a thermometer that you can embed. You can style the thermometer through the page wrapper, but we wanted to embed the thermometer externally in another website. And they have an embed widget, but when you use that embed widget, none of your styling comes with it. So you just get Engaging Networks styling for the thermometer. We developed a custom solution, so you could take that thermometer, and basically our service sits as middleware. We ingest the thermometer, inject our styling, and then we give you an embed code to then use. So if you want to have a thermometer, you want to have some visual representation of a campaign, we could create that for you, custom style it. And then what's neat is you can still actually manage it from the back end. So maybe you want to update that thermometer to use different donate pages or have a different maximum goal or something like that. You just go update it in Engaging Networks, and it kind of carries through to what's on your live site. Let's look at some examples. I haven't had any questions. I haven't really paused, though, to take questions. So, yeah.
Can you explain prefetching a little more?
I would love to. Prefetching. We can actually look at it in action if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Other questions? No? OK. Well, let's look at some examples. So this is OC's current donation form. Single column. Give monthly. One of the things we do is just put the little /month. I think I first saw this on Freakonomics, their donation form, and I was like, oh, why doesn't everyone do that? Like, that is so nice. Like, oh, painfully obvious. Give monthly. We also, once you select an amount, we chose, OC does not want an amount selected by default, so there's none. But once you select an amount, we also just update the label of the button. So again, making it painfully obvious, like you are donating monthly. There's no ambiguity about it. We have spent way too much time on custom error messages. I really like the error messages below the field. Engaging Networks defaults to above the field. You would be surprised how much work it takes to make this happen. Most of their donors are within the US. So we hide it by default. But you can click to show country. For IFAW, they are definitely international. They have regional offices. We have to do everything in 7 languages. We've customized this by country. So if you're in Australia, it just defaults to Australia, and it automatically detects what is selected. And that says outside Australia, ? We also abbreviate it on mobile, so it's not overfilling. We've got about 15 minutes. 6 minutes. Some other things we're doing, we're actually changing input types on the fly. So what an input type is if you've ever, this matters on mobile, not so much on desktop, but if you've ever touched into a field and like suddenly you get a big number pad because it's a telephone field, for zip code in the US, we say that the zip code field is telephone type. We say credit card field is telephone type. So you're not typing tiny little numbers, you get the big 1 to 9 selector. But we have to be conscious that outside the US, like in Canada, postal codes have numbers or letters in it. So we automatically are adjusting the field types based on country to account for as many scenarios as possible. Even like the mobile phone number down here, one thing was we decided also, since every single field on this entire page is required except for one, rather than putting an asterisk next to every field, we put optional in the autocomplete. But if I select like here, we get rid of the mobile phone number because actually mobile phone numbers, the number of variants in international phone numbers you would not believe. So rather than try to pretend like we know what an international phone number looks like, we limit it to kind of the US, I think, yeah, and Canada. We could code in other ones, but again, just covering the 95% use case scenario. We have some other things. OC has a integration with Rev Messaging's Revere platform, which is an SMS platform. So we've just got a little opt-in checkbox here. And then on the thank you page, we have a custom script that if they opted in and they provided a phone number, we kick over the phone number to the SMS service. And then basically that just creates a seamless integration. So anytime someone opts into SMS, they immediately get added to that external service. And then there's like a welcome series SMS stuff that triggers over in the Revere messaging platform. So if somebody donates, then we kick them to a thank you page. But I will show you in a minute what this looks like on the back end. Here's another example. Here's a side-by-side 2-column layout. One thing we did was just change it from like have questions to, hey, social sharing. Really straightforward, same format as before. Like I said, we built these to be workhorses, and I think it's played well because it's allowed us to focus on other things rather than like chasing down bugs or display issues. I can't remember the last time we had like, I don't know, since like the first month of launch, we've had anyone come back with like a display issue. I think there was something with like IE 10 that we fixed. And actually, it was Engaging Networks had a bug with IE 10 that we reported, and now it's in the platform, so it's not an issue anymore. Here is actually the lightbox I was talking about displayed on a homepage. So I set the lightbox to load every time. Normally it's once every 24 hours, but I'll refresh the page. There you go. So this page, we were just looking at it. It's the actual main donate page, and it just seamlessly embeds right into it on mobile. What's that? Yeah, we could 100% do this. Yeah, be happy to talk afterwards. So what's really interesting to get into the weeds of it, Ocean Conservancy, when they were transitioning from Luminate to Engaging Networks, their whole website was built on Luminate, but they had moved their donation pages at that point to Engaging Networks. And so our very first experience with kind of the seamless lightbox was a really complicated scenario where we were taking Engaging Networks donation forms and embedding them in Luminate web pages. Yeah, and so that like compounded things because if you know anything about like URLs and cross-domain, like there's a lot of issues related to a donation page which has to be served over HTTPS and kind of have an unbroken setup where a single HTTP connection at that point would throw like a big alert in the browser. So yeah, we could do this. You could have something else in there. Would love to talk. Here is, so Clara, you might not even know about this. We do so much testing that it's such a pain in the ass filling out these forms that we're starting to develop our own tools internally that detect the mode equals demo, which is the testing mode in Engaging Networks, and just giving ourselves little floaty buttons. So quick fill, and it just fills in fake information. Yeah, and even quick fill and submit, which fills it in and hits the submit button. I've had the tab open for a while, so let me refresh. Oh, I will show you this, though. So actually, let me do this well incognito. Oh, actually, let me go to Safari. So I'll show you the Never Bounce integration we do. So we did a lot of custom styling to make it absolutely seamless, like you don't know this is an external service. This is my personal email. And what we actually do is we disable the submit button from working until your email is verified. There is no person who can come through an Ocean Conservancy Engaging Networks form that is not first verified by Never Bounce. 100% Great Firewall, hard stop. They have, I will say that OC has one of the highest deliverability rate in terms of those kind of like invalid emails causing problems. They're just a non-issue. So that's cool. That's like super seamless. Could do that for you. Style it however you want. This is neat. This is actually a testing page we're doing for an e-card. They want to have e-cards, and we had the idea of like showing, you don't want to lose the continuity of when somebody makes a gift and showing them their receiving info, but also wanting to then bring them into an e-card. So when somebody makes a gift, let's see if this works. So this is, again, proof of concept working prototype. We store all the receiving info in a cookie, and we could actually send them to anywhere. But the point is we can use that receiving info and pull it in. Now, you might think this can be done in Engaging Networks. It can't normally because session info is lost after that first page. So with this lightbox, you're sent to a thank you page that has it. We're then pulling up a subsequent page, but still wanting to populate that same info. So kind of just one of the cool things where, easy on paper, hard in development, but we've got a really slick solution put together for them. Just a couple more things, and then I'll get into the DNS prefetching. Here's International Fund for Animal Welfare. Before we ever worked with them, they had another design agency who was doing a big rebranding for them. So they already had a design, and then we implemented and migrated their legacy pages. Definitely on the implementation side, this is a very complex build out due to the internationalization. Yeah, it's a pretty good layout. We're actually going into those were version 0. We're going into version 1, and we're going to be actually making a bunch of kind of quality of life improvements that are on the back end. So their front end forms will probably visually not change much, but the back end experience will be much better for the editors at the organization. And then this is, I mentioned earlier, International Campaign for Tibet. They had a designer that we worked with. One of these things like they wanted to have in honor and memory of, and they currently have whole separate pages for an honor and memory of. We could just make it a checkbox, something like that. They also wanted to give by check as an option. So yeah, this was a great project. Really solid design. We lucked out that their designer actually knew what they were doing. That's not always the case. Polaris Project. This was a one-off microsite. This is the one where I talked about having the ability to have multiple actions merged into one. So there's this little checkbox that if I check it, it will auto-submit all the actions on the next page, and you'll just see confirmation messages. Not going to do that. It is a live page. But when I go to, well, I had the tab open too long. Let me refresh. When I go to next step, each one of those rows is an entire separate page in Engaging Networks that we're passing your info into, submitting the action, and then once it returns your advocacy targets, we're populating them into there. We then actually have a whole separate service because they had a very complex messaging and targeting needs. So we built a whole separate standalone microservice with tens of thousands of custom dynamic messages that their volunteers are populating down to the municipality level. So the last two there, county and municipal, are custom data sets that we helped them acquire through the company KnowWho. We worked with Engaging Networks to import that into their build-out as a one-off. And we've got all these custom data sets we can leverage. Yeah, Claire?
Is the actions taken so far stuff for the people who come to this page?
This is, so while it's live, this is not the actual page. This is the demo page for it. And these are for the demo page.
Could you personalize that to an individual? Like, this is how many actions you've taken?
You could not. We could build a microservice to do that. So we would basically wait for you to submit a form, grab your email, query the database, and then just shoot back a number, and then we could do whatever we want with that number. We could also do anything with that. You know, we were talking with ICT about recommending a giving amount based on your second highest contribution, or doing an upsell lightbox only if you've given 2 one-time gifts but don't have an active recurring gift. So there's kind of like these things that you just can't do in engaging networks, so we can kind of build an interstitial microservice that does this and then just returns some result so that the form can kind of be dynamically updated on the fly. And then here's tweet to target, where it's also pulling back the targets. And then I think for the final step, we chain the info to the donate page, which they built. But let's see here. It should carry over my info. It didn't. Too bad. It might be because it's a testing page. Yeah, OK, so let's talk about DNS prefetching. I can show you it in action. OK, so right here, it really doesn't matter where you put it in there. A prefetch is only done once the entire page and all its contents are loaded. So it will not affect an end user's experience in slowing down the site. So it only happens after everything is done. At that point, it then just goes from top to bottom and starts downloading those assets into the browser cache. So what we did was we indexed every asset, every important asset, on their donate page that they link to in their main navigational bar, and we go and fetch it. So what that means is, and Claire, I'll get to you in 1 second. So if I go here, and I let that load until completion, at this point, our browser has every asset for the donate page. So when I click donate, it loads instantly. There's no downloading of imagery. There's no downloading of CSS to like arrange things. It's already in the browser. So the act of clicking donate, the page load time is the same as when I hit refresh. It's as fast as you can make it. Claire, question?
I guess what's the upper limit of which you can prefetch? Like, what if you just prefetched all of the other pages? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's kind of like a debate, because most people are not going to the donate form. That's true. Most people are on the website. You know, you have your analytics for what people go to the donate form, but most people are not. However, you're downloading everything. You're using several megabytes of their bandwidth to download the donate form. There's nothing preventing you from just using every, imagine you're on your phone, right? So people have data limits. You could totally have gigabytes downloading onto someone's phone because you're prefetching everything. A lot of websites do this. Google will actually do that. If you've ever been to like a Google AMP page, one of the things with Google AMP is in search results, any AMP results, those are the ones with the little lightning bolt, it actually goes and fetches all the assets. So it's actually prefetching all the assets to the page. So when you click that AMP enabled page from a Google search result, it loads instantly. Not because Google servers are fast or AMP pages or some type of magic coding. Definitely smart in terms of how they do it, but they're also prefetching all the assets into your browser. So it's already there. It just has to initiate the page render. So there is no limit, but you do have to be mindful. Like if you primarily were working in third world countries where, or with people that have really strict mobile data plans, you probably wouldn't want to do this. It would not be in good faith, I would say. But big organization, a lot of desktop donations, a lot of people in the US do have very robust data plans. This is not a ton of data. But like if you had a background video, let's say, on your donate page, we wouldn't fetch that. That's just too much. We might fetch a placeholder image that loads, and then if you go into the donate page, we'll then download the video and then lay it over the placeholder image. Other questions? We had a couple new people come in. You totally ask anything you want. I'll make up an answer. We have 2 more minutes. Ben's giving me the wrap it up music back there. Yeah. Would love to chat about doing Lightbox. Build that on your existing forms.
I have a question about the thermometer you were talking about.
Yeah.
That you could do an embed code. You said you can do it currently, but it's no good.
It's a microservice, and we just spin down the AWS service because it's not in use right now.
And so you could take an embed code, put it in a text block and a code block.
Yeah, like in your website.
Well, an engaging note. Oh.
So you can do all that. You can have the cool styled thermometer in Engaging Networks. The issue is they give you an embed code to put it somewhere else on the internet, kind of like a YouTube video embed. But when you do that, there's no way to apply your custom styling to it. So you just get the Engaging Networks like fat blue thermometer. So if it's inside your website, we can just write styling code, and then you'll just be able to, or sorry, inside your Engaging Networks pages, we'll just write styling code, and you can just add it as normal. If it's outside Engaging Networks, then that's where our service kind of does its magic to allow you to be like, you know, on our homepage, we want a thermometer. You know, we're not doing a Lightbox. We just want that thermometer that's live updated from Engaging Networks, that's styled to match our branding, that shows like, you know, we're doing fundraising to X campaign, or we've had, you know, X amount of donors, whatever the thermometer might be.
We use that for Giving Tuesday and the integration of putting it on existing donation pages for just the one day, because otherwise you're only getting the data to the thermometer from one campaign page, but you really want that data from anyone who comes to your site and donates on that day, right? So it's a cool integration to be able to put it on different pages and have it all catch and call.
And here it is. It's not running on a website, and it looks bland. But the point is, you literally embed it anywhere. It has transparent background, so if your background's red, then it just appears on there. But what's happening here is we're ingesting that widget, applying our own styling, and then creating our own secondary embed code that you can use external to Engaging Network services. Who's got cool projects? Who's doing what? We didn't talk too much about Google Optimize. I could talk more about that. Got 60 seconds. No? So again, my name is Bryan. You'll see me around. I'm going to be at the Nonprofit Technology Conference. Is anyone else going? Is everyone else going? Most people? I'll be there. I'd love to chat about projects. Also, if you come up right now, what I can do is just get your email. I'll just like shoot an email that says, hello, let's talk about X. And then, because we're going to forget about each other as like, you know, conference starts to happen. But then we can follow up like Monday, Tuesday next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
So in this room, John Simatowski, who's an engaged employee, he'll be doing a click-to-call. He'll be walking through how that platform works and the structure of it. And then next door will be Matt Barr from eMove Digital. He'll be walking through like automated series